Inside the Gordo firm mansion, a young boy named Hawk shamelessly disrespects two maids by touching them without their consent. They plead with him to stop, but he arrogantly scolds them, claiming they have no right to speak back and calling them worthless servants. Hawk, the only son of Gordo firm, is nothing short of a disgrace. He tells the maids their only worth is in their bodies and insists they let him do as he pleases. He commands them to stand still so he can have his way. Helpless, the maids express how painful it is working under such a vile womanizer. Meanwhile, in a city office building, a middle-aged employee sits in a chair, thinking about how he hates women. Behind him, three ladies are happily gossiping with each other. They're talking about Kaneda from the manufacturing team, who skipped work again after partying. They say he isn't very sociable, which might be why he hasn't been promoted. They also joke about his age and lack of a love life, wondering how long he plans to stay single now that he's 30. One woman mocks him, saying he'll never get married or find a girlfriend with a face like his. Kaneda overhears everything, and later that evening, as he walks home, their cruel words echo in his mind. He checks his phone and reads a message from a friend that says in this country, "We are losers for simply being alive." He smiles and agrees, thinking that even if you work full-time, it might be easier to just live part-time. His friend replies that being a middle-aged man is rough. You can't even afford new games. Lately, he's been playing old retro games instead. Kaneda asks if it's a soccer game, but his friend replies, "Of course not. It is a hidden gal game masterpiece that is famous among those who know it." He suggests Kaneda give it a try, but Kaneda isn't interested. He says he's sick of women, that every time he gets involved with one, it only leads to trouble. He spots a billboard on top of a building showing a cheerful couple. His face shifts to irritation as he walks across the street. Suddenly, a bright light flashes, and he turns to see a car rushing straight toward him. There's no time to react. He's hit and falls hard, his head bleeding and seriously injured. As he lies on the pavement, life slipping away, his final message to his friend appears. He wishes to be reborn in a better world, like a gal game or an arrow game. His vision fades to black, and when he opens his eyes, he's lying in an unfamiliar bedroom. He thinks briefly about who hit him, then hears someone calling the name Hawk, asking if he's awake. A maid is seated beside the bed, and he realizes this isn't a hospital. As he watches her, a flood of memories hits him all at once. He recalls groping a maid, followed by her slapping him with full force across the face. The impact threw him down the stairs, causing the injury to his body. He has trouble coming to terms with these new memories. The maid gently warns him not to move too much since he fell down the stairs. He asks what happened to the maid who struck him. The woman at his bedside lowers her eyes and replies that she was quickly handed over to the police. She looks into his eyes and asks who he really is. He replies that he is Hawk, and questions who else she thinks he could be. He tells her that he has just suffered, and that he should behave more carefully. The maid tries to say something else, but he stops her again and says she just needs to do as she is told. She then stands up to leave, and asks for his forgiveness. Just before she reaches the door, Hawk tells her to let the police know there's no need to make a fuss over the incident. He then glances around and finally accepts that he really has been reincarnated into another world. A moment later, the door creaks open, and he asks who it is. A young girl peeks in and asks if he's feeling all right. He recognizes her as Mary, his half-sister from another mother. Hawk replies that he's fine and tells her not to worry. He also wonders how she managed to sneak into his room without being noticed by the maids. Suddenly, they hear a loud voice nearby, and Hawk quickly tells Mary to hide in the closet. The doors swing open, and an older man with a mustache and beard bursts in, calling Hawk's name with excitement. The man is his father, who rushes over and hugs him tightly. Hawk calmly asks his father to settle down and says that from now on, he'll be more mindful of how he treats women. Gordo is taken aback by his son's unexpected maturity and questions if this is some kind of early rebellion. Hawk then asks if they can talk more tomorrow and says he'll eat the cake a little later. Gordo agrees and tells him to speak up if he ever needs anything. Once the coast is clear, Hawk tells Mary she can come out now. Mary steps out of the closet and thanks him. She says the rumors about her brother becoming a completely different person were true. Hawk has now fully grasped how the former version of his body used to behave. The old Hawk would have instantly ratted her out and spread lies just to get her in trouble. He explains that he hasn't really changed. He's just learning how to be kind. Hawk gets up and notices how stuffy the air in the mansion feels, realizing it's going to be a problem. He plans to start with a major cleanup, but ends up fainting before he can begin. As he lies there, memories from his previous life come flooding in. His boss scolding him for taking a day off, female co-workers saying they didn't want to see him even outside work, and people mocking him for still being single at his age. He convinces himself that he doesn't need marriage, doesn't need a woman, and he'll just live as a loner. Suddenly, he wakes up in bed and realizes it was a dream. He remembers being hit by a car and reincarnated into a different world. Looking out the window, he sees a fantasy landscape, a flying ship to the right, and a dragon-like creature to the left. His father is the head of the Gordo Company, known for aggressive sales tactics and ruthless loan sharking. The company is hated by many. He walks through the hall where multiple maids are lined up, bowing as he passes. Many of them are his father's mistresses, while others were brought in by the former Hawk just to be harassed. Though the stair incident was caused by the previous Hawk, he wants to make sure it never happens again. He decides to keep only the hard-working staff, including Laura, the head maid. The rest, especially the lazy ones, he plans to fire. He approaches his father and childishly says he doesn't want to see any more maids. He then requests that all the servants in the mansion be fired. His father joyfully hugs him and immediately orders the maids to be fired. Given his reputation as the foolish son of a ruthless trading family, Hawk figures most of the maids won't mind losing their jobs. His father, meanwhile, remains concerned that even without the maids, his son's safety is still not guaranteed. Gordo decides that along with hiring new butlers, he will also assign a personal bodyguard to protect Hawk at all times. He even gives his son the freedom to select the staff himself. Hawk is a little caught off guard, as he would have much preferred to be left alone. Still, he agrees, and says he'll consult with the head maid about finding applicants. A few days later, a large crowd gathers outside the mansion, all hoping to be hired. Hawk stands at the entrance with Laura positioned just behind him. He thanks everyone for coming and explains that the process will begin by evaluating who deserves his trust. As he scans the group, he notices one person yawning and others chatting and laughing casually. He points to 3 individuals and tells them to follow him for a second test. To the rest, he wishes them well and politely informs them they have not been selected and may now leave. The yawning man looks shocked, then yells in frustration that the boy has wasted everyone's time. The calm boy simply responds by saying his head maid's name, Laura. Automatically, she understands what she has to do. With a frightening presence, she steps forward and orders everyone to leave. The group is overcome with fear, and one man stumbles backward in panic. The yawning man quickly turns and runs off. The man who had fallen looks visibly disappointed, picks himself up, and slowly walks away. Hawk then reviews the profiles of the 3 remaining candidates. First is Basil, who has experience working in the stables and can be relied on for heavy-duty tasks. Second is Olive, a wolfman and former mercenary, making him a strong choice for an escort. Third is Hibiscus, who has sword skills and the ability to use fire magic. He leads the trio inside the mansion. Hawk brings them to a table loaded with a variety of tasty dishes and takes a seat. He tells them that he wants them all to eat. As the heir to the Gordo Company, he expects to attend many formal banquets in the future, so he needs to see if they have proper dining etiquette. Olive responds briefly with a firm, "Understood." Hibiscus looks displeased and says she'll eat only because she was instructed to. Basil is clearly impressed by the spread and is cheerful, noting that it's rare to enjoy such fine food for free. They all sit down to eat. Basil enjoys his meal with enthusiasm. Olive eats calmly and without complaint, and Hibiscus eats with visible reluctance on her face. Hawk watches them closely, then moves his wine glass a bit to get their attention. He apologizes for interrupting, and says he would now like to proceed with the next test. As he gets up and asks them to follow him, he catches sight of Hibiscus's uneasy expression. They head to the office, where Hawk sits at a polished desk with the 3 applicants standing before him. He begins by announcing that Olive is hired. The wolfman responds respectfully, promising to live up to his new master's expectations. Next, he hires Basil for heavy-duty work, which brings a grin to the broad-shouldered man's face. Finally, he turns to Hibiscus and tells her that she won't be hired. She immediately erupts in frustration, demanding to know why she was the only one rejected. Hawk calmly explains that because he'll be attending many formal dinners and business meetings, he can't have an escort who so openly resents wealthy people. Hibiscus then reveals that her younger sister is seriously ill, and she's in desperate need of money. Dropping to her knees, she begs for another chance, saying she'll do anything. Hawk knows she's telling the truth, as Laura already conducted background checks. He worries that if his refusal leads to her sister's death, he might end up as the villain in a tragic heroine's story. With that, he changes his decision and tells her she's hired. Grateful, she thanks him wholeheartedly, and even asks if she should now become his mistress. Hawk brings Hibiscus over to meet his sister, Mary, and tells her that Hibiscus will be her new escort starting today. Mary is shocked, but her brother assures her that it is true and that if she has any problems with her new guard, she just needs to say so. Mary lowers her gaze, feeling unworthy of having a personal guard. Hawk gently explains that it would reflect poorly on the company if its own owner's daughter lacked a proper escort. Mary looks at him with sincere appreciation and thanks him. Hawk then walks down the hall, escorted by his other two new hires. Having always felt uneasy around women, he now enjoys the calm that comes with no maids in sight. Just then, a woman dressed like a nun catches his attention. She introduces herself as Mint from the Royal Academy Department. Hawk's face stiffens. He's horrified to realize he has to talk to another woman. Apparently, he had begged his father to hire a private magic tutor, but he didn't expect the teacher to be female. Hey, sit on sofas facing each other, with a small table and 2 cups of tea between them. Mint glances around and asks about his parents. Hawk explains that his father is away working, and he has no mother, so he's been given the authority for now. Mint is surprised and impressed by his responsibility at such a young age. He then asks if she will sign the contract. She agrees, saying that's why she came. Olive places the document on the table, and Mint signs it without hesitation. She tells him she's looking forward to teaching him, and asks how she should address him. Hawk replies there's no need for titles, and that she can call him by his name. They move to the mansion's garden, where Mint begins her lesson. In this world, the air contains a substance called element. Magicians draw mana from the element and transform it into their own aptitudes through their bodies to use magic. Mint has a natural ability for wind and dark powers, so when the element enters her body, it becomes usable only in those forms. The element acts as the fuel for magic and automatically adapts once inside the body. To demonstrate, Mint casts a wind spell. She moves her hand and says, "Wind blow," followed by, "Blow gently." Hawk feels the breeze softly wrapping around him. Mint explains that casting magic requires a trigger to pull mana from the element and 2 words to describe what you want the spell to do. Although spell strength can be modified by adding phrases, she advises him to start with basic 2-word spells. She hands him a dark magic reference book, the same one she used during her elementary school days. She advises him to first learn about the types of dark magic and what they are capable of. She also makes him promise not to practice magic alone, explaining that without proper knowledge, there's a real risk of accidents like explosions or losing control. Later, Hawk mounts a horse and rides across the mansion grounds with Basil and Olive by his side. During the ride, Basil asks what Hawk would do if both his escorts were killed. He warns that betrayal among adventurers is not unusual. While he's glad that Hawk trusts them, he's concerned that being too trusting might get his young master hurt. Hawk feels reassured by their concern and appreciates their advice. Basil then jokes that it's really because if anything happened to Hawk, his own life would go downhill. No more fancy meals or high wages. Hawk laughs at the comment. Just then, the head maid appears and tells Hawk that he has a visitor. She says the guest is a girl named Sunny. Hawk's expression immediately tenses. He instructs Laura to ask the guest to wait in the drawing room. Basil, clearly curious, asks who the girl is. With some hesitation, Hawk answers that Sunny is his fiancée. Meanwhile, inside the Gordo mansion, Sunny waits nervously for Hawk to arrive. She remembers a moment when she was peacefully watering flowers, only to be suddenly kicked in the back by her fiancé. He would often tell her that he had no desire to marry someone like her, but since it was his father's command, she should feel thankful. He also said a gloomy, negative, and ugly girl like her belonged in the attic while he brought mistresses into the house. As she gazes out the window, Hawk enters the room. He greets her politely and asks what brings her here. She is caught off guard and asks if he is really Hawk. He answers that, as the heir to the Gordo company, he realized he needed to change his behavior. Sunny is 8 years old and the daughter of a baron. Hawk's father had long wished to join the ranks of nobility, so he offered a large sum of money to the baron in exchange for accepting Hawk as a future son-in-law. Because of this, Sunny had to deal with the young monster while pretending everything was fine. Hawk remarks that it's obvious she only came because her father told her to. He tells her that he'll send a letter to the baron later, and that she's free to return home now. Sunny is still stunned by his unexpected tone and can barely respond. She then nervously offers him a small potpourri made from flowers she grew herself, saying it's a get-well gift. Hawk accepts it. She then returns to her carriage and heads home. Hawk watches from the window as she leaves and begins to reflect on his life. Marriage was never in his plans, yet here he is, caught in an engagement. He wonders if it's possible to become a noble without marrying, or if there's a peaceful way to end the arrangement. Still, he considers all the effort his father put into this deal and questions whether the old Hawk accepted this engagement simply out of duty to his father. He recalls all the isekai games he used to play, where the protagonist could usually solve every problem with a cheat skill. He finds it unfair that real life isn't the same. Thinking about another world sparks an idea, and he quickly calls Basil over to ask if there's a slave market. Basil objects, saying he dislikes the place because of the miserable lives of those sold there and the vile people who deal in them. Hawk stands and tells him he won't be forced to come along. Olive will accompany him instead. They make their way to the town square and slip into a narrow, dim alley. That's where he sees the cages holding the slaves. Olive mentions that there's still time to turn back, but the young master insists on proceeding. As he steps closer, Hawk notices a slaver presenting the merchandise to a crowd. The place is packed, making it hard for Hawk to get a clear look inside the cages. To help, Olive lifts him onto his shoulders, giving him a better view. Inside one of the cages is a cat-like beast woman looks at him. The seller notices and asks if Hawk is interested in someone. The boy answers yes. The slaver then explains that she's a rare wildcat beastman, dangerous but with unmatched combat abilities. He also assures the crowd that, thanks to the collars they wear, slaves are completely obedient. Hawk then points to the large tiger man beside the beast woman and says he'll take him instead. The seller is taken aback and asks if he's sure, especially since female beast folk like her are hard to come by. Hawk replies that the muscle man will do just fine and confirms the purchase. The cage opens and the towering tiger man steps out, standing before Hawk. He is massive. Olive's head barely reaches the height of his chest. He introduces himself as Creason. Hawk then tells him that from now on, he'll be bodyguard number 3 and must protect him, even if it costs his life. This enrages Creason, who responds by vowing to kill him one day. Hawk shifts his attention to the female slave, who's glaring at him with anger. Even so, he decides against choosing her, thinking she has the typical appearance of a slave heroine, which he wants to avoid. As they head home, he tells Creason that it is good that he is healthy and well. However, he will need to take a bath as soon as they get home, which surprises the newly purchased slave. Meanwhile, Basil is tending to the horses at the Gordo family stables. As he works, he reflects on a conversation he had with the Adventurer Guild staff. Back then, he had been asking for high-level quests. The guild worker told him to stop requesting missions above his B rank. Basil defended himself, saying that it's his ambition that has kept him going even past the age of 40. The staff member instead recommended a job request from the Gordo company, which was offering a very generous reward. Without much hesitation, Basil accepted it. He remembered leaving the guild building and seeing homeless people scattered around the streets. Clutching the request sheet tightly, he made a silent vow never to end up like them. Basil suddenly snaps out of his thoughts, realizing he had been reminiscing. Now that he's gotten to know Hawk and sees him as a decent kid, Basil starts to question where all the bad rumors came from. He reflects on how he now gets to enjoy good food under Hawk's care, and even gets to tend to horses, something he had dreamed about since childhood. He remembers turning down the trip to the slave market, and wonders if he should apologize to his young master once he returns. When Hawk and Olive arrive back, Basil is stunned to see a tiger beastman slave casually walking beside them. He immediately asks why his young master bought more muscle when he could have chosen a woman instead. Hawk replies that he didn't go to the slave market for anything like that. He was only interested in purchasing the biggest and strongest slave available. Crescent is pleased to hear this and compliments the boy's taste. He then spots the horses in the stalls and stares at them with interest. Hawk instantly picks up on his hunger and offers to get him something to eat. But the tiger man boldly says Hawk shouldn't be stingy and should let him eat at least 2 horses. Basil instantly protests, warning that he'll do something terrible to him if he dares lay a finger on them. They head into the mansion, where Crescent is stunned by the clean and luxurious interior. Hawk instructs Olive to get a bath ready for their new companion. Crescent remarks how strange Hawk is for letting a slave like him take a bath in his home. As they walk down the corridor, Olive watches the two speak to each other like equals. It makes him recall the first time he heard about the Gordo bodyguard request back at the Adventurers Guild. Even though the guild worker warned him about Hawk's awful reputation, the dog beastman accepted the job without hesitation. Other adventurers who saw him take the mission were surprised, especially since Olive had once been a famous soldier known for ignoring high-paying requests. What they did not know was that Olive was so curious why the Gordo heir was interested in him that he took the job to find out. Back in the present, Hawk is enjoying a relaxing bath with his 2 beastman bodyguards. Crescent comments that the spacious bath reminds him of the hot springs back in his hometown. Curious, Hawk asks about it, and the Tiger Man explains that his village is near a volcano, which made it possible to build a hot spring resort. Hawk says he might visit someday. Olive advises against it, warning that the locals might kill him if they see Crescent as a slave. Hawk decides he'll still go, but without Crescent. The Tiger Man grumbles, calling it unfair that he doesn't get to enjoy his own village. Hawk reminds him that he is, after all, a slave. Crescent is jolted back to reality, realizing how easy it is to forget his status because of how relaxed his new master is. Olive watches Hawk and thinks that his strange but kind nature makes life in the mansion unexpectedly pleasant. It might even be enough to warm a heart that has felt hollow for years. After the bath, Hawk refreshes himself with a fruit milk drink. Crescent gets curious, so Hawk tells him to try it if he'd like. The Tiger Man looks stunned, confused as to why he's being treated so respectfully despite being a slave. Olive simply tells him to get used to Hawk's personality. Once they're dressed, Basil comes to inform Hawk that dinner is ready. Hawk turns to Crescent and asks if there's anything he can't eat so he can make adjustments. Crescent replies that if the boy keeps treating him so nicely, he's going to lose his mind, making Hawk laugh. Elsewhere, a mysterious woman stands before a shadowy council. They order her to infiltrate the Gordo Company and assassinate its key members. The woman is revealed to be Laura, who is addressed as a member of the Secret Intelligence. Back in the present, Laura, now in her maid disguise, opens the blinds in Hawk's bedroom to let the sunlight in.